beginning, arriving here and now. This breath, this moment, recollecting, reconnecting, gathering in this here and now, this time, this space. Not a gaining or a getting rid of. No gaining, no getting rid of. Awakening is what we're practicing. Awake. Because we wish ourselves well. Life wishes itself well. This is how life is, here and now. Breath, breath present, softly. Given attention, received experience. Abdomen rising on the in-breath, falling on the out-breath, softly. A well-wishing, complete receiving, a generous giving. Gathering, recollecting, knowing, sustained in present moment. Just this sensation, just this experience, this life. The knowing, neutral, as it is. A settled experience. An interest, inquiry, without more than that as a gift, so that life is known, life is received, experience is received in the knowing. As it is. With all the time and space of this here and now. It all is given attention. Naturally, collectedly, sustained. and stillness of the body, allowing experience to be revealed, not the shifting and the changing and the distracting, a patient being with this patient gift in the present and the receiving of this. Unembellished experience. It's interesting. An attention given, a sensitivity experienced, life, recollected, collected, a sense of well-wishing, stillness and the silence, present in every moment, and the knowing that knows itself. Unencumbered, and the ending allowed, the experience reviewed, and a welcoming again, opportunity to say a few words, encourage reflection, encourage consideration, from a sense of well-wishing for all, sense of gratitude for what's been received, and for the opportunity and no intention to increase doubt or worry or regret. And it's a strange old thing, because what one notices, the critical faculty, is what's wrong. And criticizing the critical faculty is just adding a complication to things. So it's like this. And so to reflect a little bit about how we physically act, what we do, and how we use this physical form, which has its own rhythms and its own impulses, and then the way that the intentions work through this form. So how the intentions and the resolutions and the hopes and fears and emotions work through this form. And the way of keeping regrets and worries and concerns at the minimum is to set some uh, protection around how we use this form, this physical form, and the intentions that we allow to act through this physical form. So the basic basic thing is not to harm. The intention is not to harm physically. So certainly not to kill, not to intentionally kill. And that's it's already quite a strong boundary. And then so not to kill is killing humans is deliberately shortening the life of a human being. Is such a waste of such a power and such a vehicle. So not to intentionally kill human beings. And then, at the basic level, yes, most of us, if we're listening to this, don't act on that sort of intention, even though we may sometimes have that impulse. I'm not saying the impulse is you have to sort of ignore. It's just that you don't have to act on it physically or verbally, really. So not to do things that harm human beings. And then through this, of course, all animals, anything that breathes, it's the breathing animals that are about not killing. I'm sorry, bacteria and things that don't breathe. It's not. You don't come under this precept. It's not. But this precept can obviously be extended to being careful about how one uses the resources that one does have, so that they cause at least the least amount of damage to creatures. And that having that strong intention in your life, be careful about how you pollute and how you use things that do pollute and how you relate to things that pollute and how you relate to industries that also in themselves pollute and damage life. Because this is something that we can reflect on. So having a care over that is what that first precept is about. As some of you know, I encourage veganism for special occasions. So if you have a big anniversary or a big event, you're inviting lots of people, and it's a big celebration, and then to arrange it in such a way that there's least damage or problems for other creatures is an exercise, and is possible nowadays. It would have been much more difficult in previous times, and that's just a way of considering this. In the old days, the big important things would be huge amounts of dead animals of various kinds, and it's there's a certain nowadays with the way that also animals are produced. The encouragement is also not to support the humans that are involved in that industry. The humans that are involved in that industry have to themselves deaden their aliveness by the sort of willful ignoring of the pain that their actions bring to other creatures. And that willful ignoring of that pain deadens their own aliveness. And that's a great, again, waste of a power that humans have, which is of incredible sensitivity and aliveness. So that's just that first precept on action that is in accordance and in harmony with truth. Sammakkamanto, action in accordance with truth, not killing. And that's in itself is it's almost enough for a lifetime's work. And then there's all the debates about what to do with stuff. Really being clear about that as much as possible is a help. And then the next one is this sense of stealing, of deliberately manipulating something so that you're depriving something of something that's legitimately theirs. That's that theft. There's with the intention, what you're doing there is you're exploiting some skill or some power that you have to exploit others. And this it feeds actually one's sense of inadequacy. So it's not a kind thing to oneself to steal from others. It's not, and it's certainly not a kind thing to them to steal from others. Taking something which is not, you're going to deprive somebody of something that is legitimately theirs by either trickery or force. It's not helpful. Not helpful for them and not helpful for others. It's a way of increasing social disharmony. It makes your life more difficult. This is the one that I would really like every being on the whole planet to keep. I'd really like people to not steal, because then I wouldn't need any keys, any password managers, any any locks on any doors, and it'd be a pleasant place to not have to feel that one has to protect things from people who will deprive you of them. That's the reason and the joy of not stealing and training oneself in that. And as I say, the intention is not to harm. That's how it ties up with. And it's part of also this, the basic attitude and paradigm of the view on life, which is in the doing of skillful things and the not doing of unskillful things, there is in itself joy, a sense of self-respect, a sense of uprightness, or the foundation of one's life is clearer, and there's certainly less to regret or to worry about. The joy of not stealing. In terms of the more subtle forms of stealing, or taking that which is not due, cheating and things like that. It's one can go on and on about those, or stealing the resources of the planet. That sort of exploitation is given, but then hoarding and keeping it to yourself. What does that? Or just exploiting it? What does that do to society? What does that do to life? It makes the whole thing more fearful and contracted, the whole thing more defended, and a more sense of inadequacy that then produces a whole posturing and sadness. And as an effort to do that, it's a part of right effort not to follow those impulses, to take that which is not given. That's its relationship in the path. So you're noticing when you're moving your hands, or you're doing something that you think, this is going to be taking something that's not given. This is going to be depriving somebody of something that is legitimately theirs. To really notice that, and notice what happens in the heart, and notice what happens in the intentions, and where that sense of neediness is coming from. Neediness to be, give me more, which is not necessary. Because on the whole, most of us, if we're doing this, have enough, and appreciating that is, and the peacefulness that can come with that is enough. Now the other thing that we can do is with these bodies is again to do with not this intention or resolution is not indulging. And the big indulgence can be, that is sex. So being really circumspect in that, because celibacy is okay. It's not impossible. Not eating is impossible. You do have to eat, and so you can also be careful around what you eat. But you can, with sex, you can figure out, how do I relate to this so it doesn't harm me or harm others, and how can I not use it as an indulgence or as an escape, or use it as a way of harming or expressing power, or using it in as a distraction, or as a diversion. The not harming is being careful about the contracts you make or the agreements you make around sex, so that they're not exploitative and not violent, or breaking contracts and agreements, either that you've made or that others have made. So, you don't adultery and rape, and that's definitely no-nos, or exploiting beings that are in some way under one's protection or unable to really speak for themselves or really know what's going on. All of that sort of basic sexual activity is not is not part of this. To not do that is a training to be done, and then to figure out how one relates to this, very powerful energy. If there wasn't sex, there wouldn't be human beings. So it's not something that is unheard of. It's there, and it's part of life. It's but how to relate to it so that it causes least damage to people. It's a conundrum. It's something to really consider, and to keep it safe is to not use it as a way of power, or a way of just pure indulgence, or a way of breaking contracts and agreements, or a way of just exploitation of beings that aren't capable. This is the basic precept for sexuality. And in this, it's to do with one's attitude, that as a practice of a paradigm in one's life, there's a beauty and a interest in that which is wholesome, that which actually brings blessings and not a curse to life, because life is a blessing. In itself, it's a blessing. And then how to use it and respect that blessing that we find ourselves in here and now. If we have the fortune or the way of, if we are alive, this is our challenge, really. It requires effort. The effort not to persist in whatever habits and conditioning we find ourselves with that is unwholesome and damaging, and the willingness to not pick up new unwholesome stuff, and be wary about what we do, and then to figure out, the blessings that we can bring and how we can invest in them and get a good return by um, practicing the virtues that we find that we have access to, and then keeping an attention in this, keeping a sense of collectedness in this, so that we know what we're doing, why we're doing it, this moment, recollecting and sustaining that recollection, that recollecting, that reconnecting with this present moment, so that the heedlessness, which is running on dead habits, no, blind habits, is not is allowed to, this. It's not something that's followed. Heedlessness is the path to death. Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. That's a care in what one's doing, and an attention in what one's doing, a gift in what one's doing, an aspiration in what one's doing, so that there's a sense of, this is the best that I can do here and now to bring blessings, or to encourage blessings, to encourage that which is helpful and supportive of uh, um, a beauty in behavior, of thought, of speech, and of action. It's a lessening of pain and suffering for ourselves and others in the present moment and in the future. And this is our challenge. And a noticing of just the ordinary, a noticing of the neutral, the peaceful, which is not, so that life is more alive rather than getting caught up in just absorbed into this or that, and this excitement, that excitement. Allowing a sense of boredom to be there, which is not aversion but just peaceful. So, because boredom is the sense of, I'm bored. That's the sense of aversion, but a sense of neutral peacefulness is an openness to life, a sensitivity to life, a sense of not having to reject anything, that, and a sense of gift of life. It's not rejecting what's happening, but it's not, and it's allowing the impulses to do harm or to reject or to grab hold of things, allowing them to finish, so that the the foolishness of that sense of inadequacy, that from that we almost have to have as a young baby, because babies are pretty inadequate. They need kindness in order to survive, and then they have to figure out how to grow up. The body will do its own growing up. The emotions and the which come with this, and the habits of that, and the thoughts that are pushed on top of that, and the intentions that are pushed on top of that. That's all, you know. But the truly grown-up human being, the truly maturity is not compelled, not driven, and has embodies a sense of peace. Now, it's not that anybody. It's just how things are. It's just a human being being human, rather than following other stuff. Now, I often say that the only sane human behavior is behavior free from delusion, free from greed, and free from hatred. Free from delusion is free from a sense of selfishness or self-centeredness. And it's a practice. It's a practice. And in the basic sitting practice or the stillness practice, there's an opportunity to just, in the for that time, is to notice what it feels like. Notice how it is. Because when you're sitting meditation still, you're not killing anything deliberately. You're not killing anything. You're not stealing anything. You're not exploiting anything sexually. And it's okay, what is happening? What is happening? There's an interest and an acceptance in that. And the thoughts and the regrets and the hopes and the fears are just that much. And if one sees them as that, it can be liberation. So I hope that that's not too confusing today or now or whenever it is that you listen to this. And for now, if there are questions, if people would like to type them in the chat box, then I'll see what I can do with them. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the questions. Let's see if I can get them all. Every Vedana creates karma and karma vipaka. That's an assumption. It's not, if that's an assumption, then the karma is not about Vedana, it's about intention. And Vedana is just a basic movement towards or away from something. It's karma vipaka. It doesn't necessarily, there's not necessarily more intention around that Vedana. That Vedana, if it's just known as it is, where's the karma? Karma leads is what you do with it. Is it karma that leads to the end of karma? Any practice of the Eightfold Path is karma that leads to the end of karma. Well, I think that question is slightly misleading in itself, or the assumptions are slightly misleading. In ultimate truth, there is no beings, nobody is ever born or dies. who's explaining this and who needs the explanation? It's this whole thing that time and space is something that, because I think beings are a convention. There's no. This is the thing. They're a convenience. They're not ultimate reality, because if they were ultimate reality, they would always be pleasant and they would always be under control. And the whole being business is unstable, uncertain, unsatisfactory, and out of control. So that's why, if there was nobody, this whole experience of being born is something that's bound up in time and space. So I think that's probably something Ajahn Sumedharama says. I don't know. I think it's in quotes here. In ultimate truth, there are no beings, nobody is ever born, and nobody dies, and no dies. Yeah. It's not an often discussed aspect other than by Ajahn Sumedho, the 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. The person to really listen to this, about this, is of course Luang Por Sumedho. You're talking to somebody. It's definitely, you're not talking to the person who actually talks about. So me trying to explain what Ajahn Sumedho, what you've heard Ajahn Sumedho says, and then my interpretation of that, you're already going through a few filters here. So you have to be careful if you think that I can explain what Ajahn Sumedho says, because there's all sorts of assumptions going on there. But the way that the 6 elements are not often. The earth, water, fire, and air are the way things stand out as separate from other things. That's what gives them their sense of separation. It what makes them stand forth and be different from other things. Things are different because of the quality and the way that earth, water, and fire and air are balanced in this sense of separation. Earth, water, fire, and air are what gives them persistence and shape and the sense of vibration, and the fact that they also will transform. So that's the nature of existence, is these 4 elements. They come always together, and that's what makes things stand forth and give separation. The way that they separate is through sense consciousness, okay, which also joins. But as elements, conscious, things are separate in space, and so space implies time. Space and time are the same thing. The space element incorporates time, because space is time, and time is space. 2 ways of talking about the same thing. That's the nature of it. Now, what allows that all to happen, or what allows that to be there? That's the 6th element. That's consciousness, vijnana, which allows everything to be there. It's just what gives it, which allows the whole thing to do. Now, ways of getting in touch with the way things. This is to notice notice space. First of all, notice space, and notice silence. because both silence and space are there, whether there's content or not. Okay? As a way of talking. And consciousness is what makes the whole thing possible. Consciousness is what makes the whole thing possible. And that's not personal. It doesn't really, yeah. It's, and noticing the neutral is very, very helpful for this. Noticing what's neutral. Because we tend to, and this goes back to Vedana, because Vedana is just the basic impulse towards or away from things, liking or disliking. Neutral Vedana is talked about as that which is neutral. But neutral Vedana, if it's not known, so the scriptures say, is something that we tend to move away from. And neutral Vedana, when it's known, is something what the heart goes towards. So noticing the neutral, a way of communicating with the neutral, the keeping things cool is a way of not getting caught in the ups and downs of I like this and I don't like that. I'm getting caught in I like this and I don't like that. It's just going to lead to more confusion. And whenever you have feelings of love or hate whatsoever, it's that that's the thing. Whatever you trust or mistrust or like or dislike, it's just that. It's just that. Notice the neutral. It's not to say that one shouldn't have them, but that's the way that it is. Buddha was first a bodhisattva that got enlightened himself, and as a consequence of his compassion to all beings, or his compassion, the bodhisattva realized his awakening because he was interested in why do we die? Why is there death? Why is there old age? Why is there sickness? Why is there grief, sorrow, lamentation, and despair? That's the big question. That was the question that he was interested in. He was interested in that. The divine angels that came to visit him, that he saw was an old person, a sick person, and a dead person. That's what set him going. His interest was not in actually saving all the beings. His interest was in figuring that one out or realizing that. And then it was only after there was the sort of sense of, well, maybe there will be some beings with little dust in their eyes, that maybe it would help if I taught something. And what he taught was the Dhamma. What he revealed was the Dhamma. What he revealed was the truth, and he pointed out how that works. And then he also pointed out a way of training, a way of making an effort to train. He pointed out the Vinaya. He taught the Dhamma Vinaya. He taught a training things that you can, ways that you can act in body and speech. So he taught a way of considering and a framework for considering things, thinking about things, and a way of behaving in body and speech, a way of acting in society. That if you follow the Dhamma Vinaya, then that is the way to end suffering. And all he taught was suffering and the end of suffering.